Hi students, in this video I'll be sharing with you a short activity. So it's going to be a short presentation, and after I'm going to be guiding you to a Kahoot challenge. So it all has to do with wild or domestic animals. So this lesson is about learning a little bit more about the difference between a wild and a domestic animal. So I hope you're going to enjoy the explanation, the presentation, and also the challenge at the end of the video. So have fun, and I hope you're going to learn a lot. Let's learn a little bit more about the difference between a domestic and a wild animal. So the main idea behind this activity is understanding the difference between domestic and wild animals will help us on our research on endangered animals. So let's go. So first, what do you think? What is the difference between a domestic and a wild animal? And could you name a few examples? All right, let's go. So let's start with domestic animals. So domestic animals is an animal that is not wild and is kept as a pet or to produce food. So basically, domestic animals are the animals with whom humans share their lives. So here's a couple of examples. For examples, we can see cats in houses, dogs, some kinds of birds, rabbits, ferrets, mice, and other kinds of animals. So these specific types of domestic animals are also called pets, des animaux de compagnie. So they live in your house with you, and they need human to survive. So they need humans to provide them with shelter, with food, with ways to entertain themselves and have fun. So they need the help of humans to survive. There's also other kinds of domestic animals that sometimes we can't really find in our homes. For example, cows, chickens, pigs, sheep, horses. These kinds of domestic animals do not necessarily live in the house with us, but however, they do need our help to survive. And they also help us survive by providing food, or let's say milk from the cows, or eggs from the chicken. So, question, do you have or do you know any domestic animals? Maybe you do not have one at home, but maybe you know someone who has a domestic animal. Does the animal live inside the house? Does the person needs to feed it? These are all questions related to domestic animals. And then, now that we're done with domestic animals, we can learn a little bit more about wild animals. A wild animal is an animal that is, well, wild. This means that it isn't tame, donc pas apprivoisé, and it lives on its own without any help from people. A wild animal finds its own food, shelter, water, and all its other needs in a specific natural habitat. So that's very important to understand that they have a specific habitat, kind of like your dog or your cat has their specific home. So let's say a tiger could not necessarily live here in North America in our forests or in our mountain because they need specific things to eat and to drink in specific temperatures that they can find in their own habitat. Donc l'habitat de l'animal, c'est ce qui lui permet de bien vivre, c'est comme sa maison, mais c'est dans la nature. So their home is outside. Here's a few examples of wild animals. You can find wild animals anywhere around the world. So a wild animal lives in its own habitat, dans son propre habitat, his own home. And unlike domestic animals, they do not need the help of humans to survive. So they can survive perfectly on their own without having any help from humans. So, wild animals. Can you name wild animals that probably live in your own backyard? Yeah, so probably like squirrels and some kinds of birds and maybe some groundhogs and other animals like that. They all live in your backyard. You may not necessarily see them, but they're there. And they live perfectly on their own. So now that you understood a little bit more the difference between a domestic and a wild animal, I'm going to invite you to a Kahoot challenge on domestic and wild animals. So I'll see you there, and you've got this.